Good morning, everyone. Our session will be only for 25 minutes and it will be based on inheritance. Okay, it will be based on inheritance. So, let me quickly start with the concept. So, if you look over here, we have a class called base class called as animal. Okay, we have a derived class. Let's check out the name of the derived class. We have a dog class. Okay, it has got a function called as f1. Let's assume it has got a function called as f2. This dog is inheriting animal using the keyword called as extends. That means dog is in a position to access the function f2 plus dog is in a position to access the function f1 because it is public, and if it's in the same package it could be default. So we have a class called as dog, which is a derived class. A derived class inherits the property of the base class using the keyword called as extends. So when I create an object of a dog class by saying dog some object equal to new dog, this is a class name, this is a reference variable, and this is basically creating an object using a constructor, but we don't have any constructor. So that's perfectly fine. So default constructor will be called. But before dog couldn't be created, first what it has to create? It has to create animal. Why? Because of this keyword called as extends. So step 1, animal class is created. Step 2, dog class is created. Then I could access F2 and F1. So when I go back over here, there is a class animal having a eat function which is displaying the A. There is a class dog which is extending the animal. This indicates that it is an inheritance. There is a bark function over here and we are displaying the B. There is a class main, a separate class which is creating an object of a derived class by saying dog D is equal to new dog. Now obviously the dog object can access the bark function because the bark function is in the same class. Kindly pay attention, animal and dog are in the same package. Even though you are not written a public, by default it is a default. So what will happen? It can access the eat function also. So when I say d dot bark, it should give me b. When I say d dot eat, it should basically go to the base class. And there is no eat function over here. It will go over here and make a call to this particular function. So it should be displaying b and a. So when I run the code, what should happen? It should give me b and a, which is displayed over here. Is it clear to you? We call this as a inheritance. Okay, single level inheritance, we call it as single level inheritance. Let's take another class. In this case, the base class is animal. There is a dog class like how we have seen in the previous example, which is inheriting the animal. So dog is extending the animal. There is a baby dog which is extending the dog. So this one is inheriting this. Dog is inheriting animal, and this has got a function eat. This has got a function bar. Okay, and this has got a weep function. So we have a class main, okay, in which I'm creating an object of the baby dog. So I'm creating an object of a baby dog. So point number 1, it can access weep. It can access weep. Can it access bark? Yes, because baby dog is extending dog. This one. Can my particular baby dog access this eat? Yeah, because dog is extending the animal. Dog is extending the animal. Clear? So we have the derived class, baby dog, inheriting dog, dog inheriting animal. So this is called multi-level inheritance. This is called multi-level inheritance. What do you mean by multi-level inheritance? We have a class A, we have a class B, we have a class C, we have a class main. C is extending B, B is extending A. Clear? So when I create an object of the C class, it can access the function available over here. Let's assume the function is F3. So obviously it can make a call to this function. Now because of this extend, it can make a call to these functions available in the class B. Let's assume it is F2. So it can make a call to F2, whether if it is public or if it is default. Now since B is extending A, imagine that there is a function called as F1. And since it is a default public, it can access F1. So you'll be in a position to access F3, F2 and F1. So when I run the code over here, I'm creating an object of the baby dog, which is this one. I should be in a position to make a call to weep, bark and eat. And if I see over here, I get the output C, B and A. C, B and A. Understood? Consider a class static int A, int B, int C. Okay, And we are creating an object called as obj1 and obj2. So these are the two objects. So these objects are going to have the separate copy of the instance data. What is the instance? Creation of an object. So we have one copy of B and C, we have one copy of B and C over here. Understood? So instance data is nothing but the data associated with each and every object. Each and every object will have a separate copy of it. Static means it belongs to the class. There will be only one copy of it. It will be shared by both the objects. Both the object. I hope your static instance field will be clear to you. We have a base class called as calculation. Okay, it has got two functions, addition and subtraction. Addition and subtraction. There is another class called as my calculation, which is extending the calculation. There is a class called as my calculation, which is extending the calculation. Okay, let me have a separate class over here so that we don't mix up the logic. Let's have the class main. Okay, and this main class has got a main function. We have got two local variables a and b. We have got an object called as my calculation, which is a derived class, and in which I have a addition, subtraction and multiplication. So if you look at this particular class hierarchy, what it is telling me that there is a base class called as calculation. What is int z? Int z is a data member, instance field. Okay, why I call it as an instance field? Because there is no static over there. Public void addition, public void subtraction are the two functions, addition and subtraction. Taking two parameters int x and int y, and they are displaying the sum and the difference. They are displaying the sum and the difference. Your class, base class ends over here. See, we started over here, we are ending over here. There is a derived class called as my calculation, which is extending the calculation. Okay, there is a multiplication function over here, which is having the opening brace and the closing brace. We have the opening brace and closing brace for the class. Okay, there is a class main. There is a class main which has got a function called as main. It has got two data members a and b. I am creating an object of a derived class called as my calculation. So let me explain this with the diagram what we are doing. So we have a base class called as calculation. We have a derived class called as my calculation. Okay. So we have a base class called as calculation. It has got an instance field. Let's check it. Yes, it has got an instance field called as X. Sorry, Z. It has got two member function, addition taking two parameters and subtraction. There is a derived class called as my calculation. So name of the class is my calculation. Okay. We use a keyword called as extends. We use a keyword called as extends. And here I have written one more function called as multiplication. It is only for the illustration. Okay. This example is only for the illustration. Multiplication. Does it have an instance data? No. Does this have an instance data? Yes. So this particular my calculation is in a position to access this particular function, is in a position to access this, is in a position to access this, as well as it is in a position to access this. Why it can access this? Because by default it is default. Nothing has been written, no private has been written, so it can access it. Can it access the addition and subtraction? Yes. Why? Because they are public. Why? Because they are public. So when I create an object of this and pass the parameters, I can make a call to addition because it is inherited. I can make a call to subtraction because it is inherited. And I can make a call to multiplication because it is already there in this particular class, my calculation. Okay. So when I go back to my program, okay, in the multiplication, I can access this Z. I can access this Z. Why? Because Z is by default a default access specifier, and yesterday we learned that it could be accessed in the same package. They are there in the same package. Class calculation, class my calculation, class main, all are in the same package. Clear? So here what I am doing, I am saying A is equal to 20, B is equal to 10. What does this indicate? This indicate the local variable. This indicate the local variable. This local variable are passed to demo.addition, demo.subtraction, demo.multiplication. Demo is an object of my calculation. Demo is an object of my calculation, this particular class. Okay, so when I make a call to multiplication, control comes over here and assigns the value of x and y to this particular z, and it is displaying the product. Then when I say subtraction, do I have a subtraction over here? I don't, but I'm using something called as extends calculation. So where it will go to this particular class calculation. It will check whether it has a subtraction. Yes. Does it take two parameter? Yes. It is the correct signature is there. So it will display the difference. Then I come over here and make a call to addition. I pass two parameters A and B. So what happens is it goes to addition. There are two parameter X and Y. They'll be added and displayed over here. So what we learned in this example is, if the functions are not there in the derived class, it will go and check it in the calculation class, that's a base class. And if it is public or default, then it will be in a position to access it. If it's in a separate package, we have to give a public compulsorily. Is the concept clear to you? Okay. Next example is important because it is teaching us one very important concept of the super. So let me explain this with the diagram. Super class, subclass. Okay. There is a base class called as super class. Okay. It has got a data member called as Z. What is this? Instance field. It has got instance field. Okay. 1 minute. Sir, there is a constructor. Okay, it is a parameterized constructor, takes one parameter, and there is a function called as getAge. There is a function called as getAge. There is a function called as subclass. Okay, and this subclass doesn't have any data member instance data, but it has a constructor. Okay, it has a constructor. It has got a parameterized constructor. I guess superclass. Okay, it also has a parameterized constructor. Does it have anything? No. There is a base class superclass with a data member Z. By default, access specifier is default. There is a constructor parameterized. There is a getAge function. There is a subclass parameterized constructor. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, pay attention very carefully. This doesn't have a default constructor. Okay. This does not have a default. It doesn't have it. It has only parameterized. It has got a getAge function. What is the subclass has? It has got only parameterized constructor. So when I create an object of a derived class, okay, when I create an object of a derived class and pass certain parameter, let's assume I'm passing 5. So the control comes here. Control comes here to the derived class. But I told you that before creating a derived class, it has to create a superclass. It has to create a superclass. That's a base class. And for creating a base class, what it has to do? It has to execute the default constructor. It has to execute the default constructor. But you are providing a parameterized constructor. So will the system provide a default constructor? No. So my program is bound to collapse. My program is bound to collapse. Okay. Why? Because there is no default constructor in the base class. Have you understood this concept? When I'm creating an object of a derived class, the first thing it does is it goes and executes a default constructor of the base class. So if you look over here, there is a base class called as superclass. It has a parameterized constructor. It does not have a default constructor. There is a getAge function. There is a subclass. There is a derived class called as subclass, which is extending a superclass. It has got a one parameter constructor. Okay. Let's close this and let's have class main. And in the class main, I'm creating an object of a derived class. In the class main, what I'm doing, I'm creating an object of a derived class. What will happen is control will come over here. Okay, control will come over here and check out for this constructor and check out for this constructor. Do we have this constructor? Yes. But before that, there is something called as an extend superclass. What should happen? It should go to the base class. And in the base class, do I have a default constructor? I do not have a default constructor. I do not have a default constructor. Let's try to run this. Okay. Now what happens is you made a call to the subclass with one parameter. Okay. Subclass, extend subclass. Yes. So it comes over here. Okay. We have written this particular course, subclass intAge. Let's have. Okay. And let's try to run this and check whether it runs or not. So what happens is when it comes over here, it collapses. When it comes over here, it collapses. Why it collapses? Because it went into the superclass. It went into the superclass, checked whether it has a default constructor. It does not have a default constructor and it collapsed. Because it was not in a position to create a base class. So what I will do, I will write a default constructor. Okay. To prove that this is called first, what I will do, system.out.println, I'll write base. Okay, I will write a base. That's okay, but it is giving me a different error. Base class, parameterized constructor, default constructor, getAge function, end of the base class. Base class, parameterize, default, getAge. Derived class, only derived class constructor, parameterized constructor. Okay, and I'm creating an object of a derived class constructor by passing one parameter. So before the control could come over here, there is extends superclass. So what it has to do, it has to go and execute the base class constructor, which is this one. So let's check whether we are getting the base constructor. Yes, we are getting it. Then what happens? Then control comes over here to this particular constructor and displays derived class. Are we getting it? Yes, we are getting it. And then finally what I do, I make a call to the s.getAge. Do we have the getAge? We don't have it. So where it will go? It will go to the base class and display the value of the age. What is the value of the age we are passing? 24. So it should display the age as 0. Let's see why we are getting the age as 0. Why we are getting the age as 0 over here. You created an object of a derived class. Okay, you created an object of a derived class by passing 24. Okay, so it went over here. It went over here to this particular constructor. It executed this base constructor. Okay, then what happened was, it came over here to the subclass. It came over here to the subclass. Okay, it executed this. So what was age? 24. What was age? 24. This 24 was never assigned. This 24 was never assigned to this particular age. This particular age. And here in the default constructor, I never assigned the value for the age. So now when I say s.getAge, do we have a getAge over here? No. Do we have a getAge over here? Yes. Display the value of age. What is the value of age? By default instance data is 0. That's why you're getting 0. That's why you're getting 0. Okay. So what should I have done? I should have assigned the value. So how I can assign the value? I can assign the value by saying age equal to this dot age equal to age. This dot age equal to age. Now let's see what happens. Now let's run this. Let's run this. Let's see the constructor execution in sequence again. Step 1, this one. Step 2, what happens is it goes over here. It assigns 24 over here, displays a derived class, which is this one. And then I make a call to the getAge function. getAge is not available in the main. getAge is not available in subclass. So getAge is available in the base class. So it will come here and execute the getAge, which should display 24. Which should display 24. I hope it is clear.